Hi, everyone. It's Pastor Joseph again. I'm coming to you from high on God's hill today, and it is good to be with you in this virtual setting. Today's message is a really important one, and one that you may not find that you need right now, but I bet you will at some point. So you might want to just put this in the back of your mind and hold on to it. This may be a message that for some people you'll right away say, yeah, that really speaks to me. For other people, it may not be the right time for you, but I bet it will be in the not too distant future. What I want to talk today to you about is grief and loss in a time of physical and social isolation. And a lot of times when we talk about grief, we talk about the steps of grief, the stages of grief that we learned about in seminary. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talks about denial and acceptance and bargaining and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I really want to talk about right now. I didn't really ever pay real close attention to those steps anyway. Maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention in seminary, or maybe I was absent that day. I'm not real sure. But I want to talk to you about grief and loss today because they're very similar emotions. They're just different expressions or different granularities of the same sort of emotion. And what you are experiencing now in social isolation or physical isolation is indeed, could be very well a sense of loss. And there's a woman who has studied, a doctor who has studied loss. Her name is Pauline Boss. And if you've ever read any of her stuff, you'll know what I'm talking about. You can look her up on the internet. She's done a lot of podcasts. And she talks about ambiguous loss. When you experience loss or grief, sometimes it's hard to put into words what it is that you've lost. And that's particularly true in this time of social isolation. What is it actually that you've lost? You may think, well, I haven't lost anything. Why do I feel so bad? Or you may go the opposite way and you want everyone to pay attention to you because you feel you need comfort, but you don't know what it is that you're missing, what you've lost. And Pauline Boss says the first step in any sort of loss work is to identify your emotion, to try and figure out exactly what it is, to name whatever it is that you've lost. And for some people this time, if you're a teenager, perhaps you've lost your last few weeks of your school year, of your final year of school, and that's all you've known from the time you were 5 years old until 18. That indeed is a loss. You shouldn't skip over that and say, oh, other people have it worse, or, oh, at least I'm safe, or things like that. That's what we tend to do. We tend to sort of say that we've got to be macho about this, or we've got to keep a stiff upper lip, or we've just got to grit through it or pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. But it's really damaging not to deal with it, not to acknowledge it, not to admit that loss is there. So it's important in loss work to say that, yeah, I am feeling some loss, to name it. And maybe, like I said, maybe you're not somebody who's feeling that loss yet. But as we get further and further down the road, I feel that you will. You're starting to give up some things. That may be the restlessness that you feel, not being able to go outside the house. That's a loss. It comes from the same place, whether it's big or large. I see this all the time. People say, oh, this is just such a small thing. I don't know why I'm so upset. I don't know why this bothers me so. Well, loss doesn't come at you in doses. Loss doesn't come at you in small, medium, or large sizes. Loss comes at you, and you're reliving all the losses that you've had in the past. So a loss like this, which may be, not being able to see someone in person, that's still a real loss. And it goes back to every loss you've ever had: loss of parents, loss of best friends, loss of job. And so it's really important for you to spend some time thinking about and naming what you've lost right now, what you've lost in this moment. And because if you're feeling it, then it's worth being acknowledged. And I encourage you to at least acknowledge it. I think that's really, really important right about now. So that's the first step that Pauline Boss, Dr. Boss, talks about in learning to live with loss. The second step is then to refocus on what life means after acknowledging that loss, after living with that loss. And refocus means to come up with some sort of plan, some sort of way to work that loss into your future identity. Now, this may be a short-term isolation kind of thing. I certainly hope that it is. This may not be as deadly as some people have projected that it will be. I certainly hope that is the case as well. But there are going to be significant losses. There already have been significant losses beyond just the material, but losses of people's family members and people's friends. And we have to come to terms with that as well. What does it mean to go forward in a world where this has happened? And what I think that means, just my 2 cents, is that we're not going to go back to life as usual in some ways. There has to be a way to refocus how we work with one another. Our economy isn't going to go back automatically to the way it was a month ago. There has to be a way that we are compassionate with one another. There has to be a way that we reach out to one another. One of the very few joys of me being in this situation where we are electronically reaching out to one another has been hearing from all of you. And I see how important it is to be connected with each and every one of you. I love to see the comments that people leave and the connections that have been made. I've heard from people literally all over the world. And that's a refocusing thing for me, because what I've lost, what I've been able to name, is I've lost some of that connection. Much of what I do is people-focused. Much of what I do every day goes on in people's homes, goes on in face-to-face interactions with people, and that has been greatly curtailed in these moments. So refocusing, and refocusing, it doesn't automatically solve the problem. You might have to refocus several times. You might have to refigure several times. What does it mean for me to work on further with this loss? So just to wrap up and to remind you again of how this works is when you're dealing with loss and you don't quite know what to name it, when you feel unease, and as a lot of us are right now, the first thing that you might want to do is try and name it. What exactly have you lost? Is it a sense of self? Is it something internal? Or is it external? Is it you've lost being able to go out for coffee with a good friend once a week as your normal coffee date? Name what you've lost, first of all. And once you have named what you have lost, let yourself feel that. Don't skip it. Don't say, oh, I shouldn't feel that way. Don't judge your feelings. Don't judge anybody else's feelings. Oh, those folks are just whiners. They're just complaining. No, just sit with that. Live with that for a moment. Be authentic in the moment. And then the next thing, the final thing, to live with loss, to understand what's going on in yourself and to move forward, is to refocus, to try and rewrite your story. You do have some power here. You do have some agency. And what that means is, how are you going to move on from here in 2 weeks or in a month? How are you going to be in relationship to the people that you haven't been able to see? How are you going to be in relationship with this God, this remarkable God who has created you and who wants to be in relationship with you? And how will you be in relationship with your neighbor? Refocus and recreate a new way of doing things. So there's the steps of dealing with ambiguous loss. Like I say, maybe this hasn't hit you quite yet, but I guarantee you that somewhere along the way in this time, it may come to you in waves. It may come to you in, I've heard people reporting more nightmares than they've had in the past, in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've heard of people feeling sort of like cabin fever, stir crazy kinds of stuff. I've heard of people just getting short with other people that they're living with in their home situations. Let yourself feel the loss and explain it and explore it, and be gentle with yourself and with those around you, and refocus that into a new story. I think Jesus likes new stories. I think God wants us to create new stories. Every moment, every day, every dawn is an opportunity for new stories. All right, comment below. It's always good to hear from you all. As I said, that's one of the joys in this electronic time together. I hope we'll be in touch soon. Please don't hesitate to reach out and call. I'd be more than happy to talk with you. And let's see what we can talk about together, work about together. You're all in my prayers. I miss you all, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see each other face to face before too long. Stay safe, stay home, follow best practices as best you can, and we'll talk soon. All right, blessings, everybody. Bye.